Morning, grade 8, and welcome to your answer video for this Friday, April 17th-ish, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll go with that anyway. Hopefully by now, this is your second reach back of the week, and you have your answers to the first reach back, and you use those to help guide you with these questions, and hopefully you didn't leave many blank this time. The first question comes from ratio, rate, and proportional reasoning. In the first one, we used milk, and the second one, we're using potato chips. But the procedure is still the same in both questions. We're going to look for a rate that compares the cost to the mass, right? We use dollar sign to represent cost and grams to represent mass. So in doing so, when we set it up, we want this to be $1.69 for the small for 50 grams. Now remember, it is okay if you find the cost per 1 gram, that's okay. But we agreed last day in the video that in order to keep our dollar amounts above a penny sometimes, we need to create unit rates that are in 100 grams. And 100 grams, we said, is a unit of 1 because it's 1 decigram, even though we would never use decigrams ever, or decagram. It's still a real thing. So we're going to just use 100 grams, decigram. I always get decigram and decagram confused because I never use either one of them, but it is a thing. So when we look at this, what we would have done here is we would have multiplied both of these by 2 to create proportion. And if we put $1.69, I'll bring it over here, $1.69 multiplied by 2, that means that if you bought a small bag of chips, 100 grams of those would have cost you $3.38. Okay, so I'll put that over here. $3.38 per 100 grams. That's the unit rate. Okay. Our second one is $3.69 for 200 grams. And again, if I want to get that down to a 100 gram unit rate, I'm not going to multiply this time. I'm actually going to divide. You could multiply by 0.5 if you wanted to. Division is probably a more reasonable answer or work. So you take the $3.69 and you divide it by 2. And you realize that by buying a large bag, it costs you $1.85 approximately per 100 grams. We're going to use a wavy line. So I use equal to approximately $1.85 per 100 grams. We're going to round that. And finally, our last one, our party bag, is $4.29 for 330 grams. Now here, if you wanted to take it down to 1 gram first and then back up to 330, or back up to 100, that's fine. You could do that. But what we're going to do is we're going to realize that in order to get it to 100 grams, I'm going to divide by 3.3, right? And then take our calculator and go $4.29 divided by 3.3 is 1.3, which of course we know that the insignificant zero is important. It's not $1.03, it's $1.30. So therefore, and I can use our therefore symbol, therefore, party is the best deal. That looks like, that doesn't look like party. Let's try that again. Party bag is the best deal, is the best deal, is the B-E-S-T, not dest. Oh, my handwriting is atrocious. And it's $1.30 per 100 grams. All right, your next question, chapter 3, Pythagorean relationship, asks you to estimate the square root of 84 by lying it on a number line between 2 perfect squares. Since our perfect squares, our first 10 are 1. Oh, did I do that right? Hang on a second. Let's see. So our perfect are 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81. Did I forget one? I probably did. And 100. Did I forget any? Maybe not. For those who were OCD, I apologize for the spaces here and not. Oh, hang on a second. 16. Sorry. Those are without spaces now. That's better. Our first 10 perfect squares. And if we think about which ones does 84 lie between, we would take our highlighter here just to highlight them. 84 would fall between this one and this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the square root of 81 as this one, and the square root of 100 over here. Square root of 81 being 9, the square root of 100 being 10. And the square root of 84, if we were to place it using a little red dot on this number line, would probably be right around here. right? Which would mean that the square root of 84 is probably approximately equal to 9.2 maybe, or 9.1. I'm not sure. We can double check our answers with the calculator. I think it's probably 9.2. Take the square root of 84, and it's 9.16, which rounds up to be closer to 9.2 than 9.1. And that's the work you should have shown. Our next question comes from grade 7 on understanding percents, and since we haven't learned the grade 8 version, we are going to continue practicing our grade 7 percentage questions. So 50% is half, so half of $128 is $64. 25% we said was half of half, so that's $32. 10%, we take our decimal in 128, which would be right here, and we move it one place to the, if I can grab it, left, giving me an answer of $12.80. For 1%, we move it not one time, but we move it two times, giving me an answer of $1.28. 5% is half of 10%, and since 10%, if I grab my highlighter, 10% is $12.80. 5% would be half of that, or $6.40. Oopsie daisy. There we go, it's red. 75% is the sum of both. I'm going to grab this highlighted area. It's 25% plus an additional 50%. If I put those together, I would have 75%. So that's going to be $96. 2% would be simply taking 1%, which is $1.28, which is 1%, and doubling it to get 2%, which would be $2.56 if I multiply that by 2. 15% would be the sum of 10% and 5%, because that would be 15%, which would be $19.20. And finally, my favorite, 99%, would be 100%. Take away 1% equals 99%. So $128 take away $1.28 equals $126.72. There's your answers for this one. Chapter 4 on surface area. You can either use the formula or the net. We're going to do both. I'm just going to grab this and shrink it. So if I use my formula, then I would put 2 multiplied by 3.14 multiplied by the radius, which is defined right here as being 3 squared, plus 3.14 multiplied by 6 is the diameter, multiplied by the height of 3. My apologies if I used 3 for 3.14 in my first video. I used to use it all the time instead of 3.14 because it was easier to do without a calculator, so old habits. If I simplify the exponents first, I'm going to have 2 times 3.14 multiplied by 9 plus the rest. And now I simply have multiplication and addition. If I do the multiplication, I end up with this, and if I do the addition, I end up with 113.04 centimeters squared as my surface area. Now if I use my net, of course I'd have 3 faces. Some people say 2 faces, but obviously when we make the net we see 3. This would be pi r squared right here, or 3.14 multiplied by the radius squared, or 3.14 multiplied by 9. And if I took my calculator and did what is 3.14 multiplied by 9, it would be 28.26, which the bottom one would also be 28.26. And then this would be pi dh as a formula, or 3.14 multiplied by the diameter, which is 6, multiplied by the height, which is 3. And when I work this out, I would end up with 56.52, which is the area of this face. And when I added this plus this plus this, I would still get this as a final answer. So either way is right. Chapter 6, fraction operations, is your 5th question. It says show all work. So bed mass has to be followed here. So we are going to leave our addition alone, and it's going to stay as the first term in my expression. And then over here, I'm going to do my work. Of course, dealing with mixed fractions, it's always easier to use improper. And when doing division, it's always easier to multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1.5 is actually 2/3, right? And when you multiply this out, you're going to get 4 times 2 is 8, and 5 times 3 is 15. You're going to get 8/15 as the quotient to the first part, or the answer to the division. When adding fractions, you need a common denominator. We're going to use 15. Multiply this one by 5, and you get 10/15. Add your numerators. When you keep your denominators, you end up with a final answer of 18/15, which is correct. But, as all teachers will tell you, you should always take an improper fraction and re-express it as a mixed fraction. And teachers will also tell you that never leave a fraction not in lowest terms. Since 3 and 15 are divisible by 3, your answer is 1 1/5. Chapter 6 on integers. It says, find the average percent gain or loss for ice cream sales during the 5 months. We did temperature the first Reachback. We're doing a variation of that here. So the sum of your terms, meaning add them up, divided by the number of terms will equal the average. So the sum of the terms, I'm going to do this mentally for you. Negative 25 and negative 10 is negative 35. And negative 35 plus a positive 35 makes 0. So all I'm left with is June and July, so the sum of those is 25. So if I add all 5 numbers together, I get a positive 25, divided between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Means the average, therefore the average gain is positive 5% per month. That's the average percentage gain. Question 7 is, what's the equation for the graph? So here we have 3 points. The first one right there is 1, 0. So on my table, I'm going to create x is 0. Sorry, x is 1, not 0. X is 1, y is 0. And the next one right here, x is 2, y is 5. And on the third one, x is 3, and y is 10. So what we're going to look for is the equation that shows the relationship between x and y. Since the difference of y divided by the difference of x equals the coefficient or the slope of your line, going up by 5 here, and going up by 1 here. A positive 5 divided by a positive 1 is 5, which means the coefficient in my equation for x and y is going to be 5. Once we have that, we're going to find out if there's a constant needed. So we're going to take our any ordered pair. I'm going to take the first one of x is 1, y is 0, and I'm going to substitute it, x is 1, y is 0, into my equation. I'm running out of room here, so I'm going to bring this over here. So 5 times 1 is 5, and y is 0. Since this doesn't equal, I have to actually subtract 5 from both sides to make it equal, which means 5x minus 5 equals y is your equation, or 5x minus 5 equals y is the equation that matches every point on that line, including the ones beyond there, and every point that would be in between. And chapter 8, your last question on solving linear relations, or your algebra chapter. Again, just like last time, I have your variable on your right, which means this is your constant and this is your coefficient. So in order to isolate the variable, we've learned in grade 7 the easiest thing to get rid of is your constant. So I'm going to add 5 by applying opposite operation to get rid of your constant. Leave me with a positive 3 equals negative 2x. I'm then going to divide both sides by the coefficient, and x equals negative 1.5. That's your solution to the algebra. Okay, hopefully that went okay for you. If you haven't tried the enrichment question, do so. I'm going to provide the answers to last week's today and give you a new one. Hopefully everything's working well with you. Stay safe, wash your hands, and don't let your boomer parents drive you crazy.